Come on. Super glad to be here, and it definitely goes both ways with Luke. Luke is my brother. I would do anything Luke asked me to do, and that's why I'm here. So, actually, I've taught a session on confirmation for, I don't know, ever since I was a youth guy. Usually I do the section on the Bible, which I love to talk about the Bible, so if you ever want to talk about the Bible and you don't have anybody to talk to about the Bible, come find me. But today I'm going to go a little bit different direction. You're going to be talking, I know been talking about God's story, and now I think we're kind of moving a little bit into your story as far as God's concerned and so forth. And everybody's got a story, which is cool. Everybody has a unique story that's different than anyone else's. You know, the first 21 years of my life, I would have said that my story was about my family, probably like a lot of you guys. I grew up in Beaumont, Texas, which is about an hour and a half east of here. It was actually a great place to grow up in the 60s and the 70s, and I was one of 6 kids. So we had a large family. In our family, it went girl, 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 and then there was a 6-year gap, and then it went boy, 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 and I was the oldest boy. So I was the 4th kid, but in a way I was kind of like the oldest of the second family, even though these were all same parents, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so my identity in that story was my family. You know, I thought we were the all-American family. You know, in fact, I didn't even really know how good we had it. You know, we had a lake house up at Rayburn Lake, and you know, boats. We skied all summer. I mean, maybe some of you guys have a situation like that. Maybe you don't. I just didn't really know how good I had it. You know, learned to drive a dune buggy when I was 10 on a stick shift. You know, and just cool memories like that. Everything was just about summer. You know, summer was just riding my bike all day, and just felt like I had a good life. Any of y'all go to Camp Longhorn? Anybody? All right, out of way to go. All right, went to Longhorn for several years. Enjoyed that. A couple of years before that, anybody heard of a camp called Friday Mountain? I don't even know if it's still around. It's kind of in the similar part of the hill country. I went there when I was really young, so young that I was really homesick when I went. I was maybe too young, and I remember I was only there. I wasn't even there 2 weeks. Longhorn, I went for a month, you know, and loved it and had all my friends there and so forth. But when I was real little, you went to Friday Mountain and just kind of got freaked out by the whole experience, and was sending my mom, you know, directions how to get to the camp, you know, make sure you're there on the last day, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It was a really pretty funny story. I had all my bags packed on the last day. I obviously didn't like that camp. And 7 a.m. when they opened the gates for the families to come in, you know, for the last day of Visitors Day, my entire family comes over the hill. You know, I mean, they're the first one. Nobody else is even on the property, you know, so they must have thought I was, you know, borderline suicidal or something, you know, like that. So I just had that vivid memory of my entire family, you know, walking up to see what poor little Brett was, you know, what all those letters were about. So anyway, strong identity with my family. You know, childhood was not traumatic. Made decent grades. Played sports like a lot of you guys. Took piano lessons. I wasn't too thrilled about that, but that changed to when I got older. I got into other instruments. Started playing the drums. Started learning guitar and bass. Really got into rock and roll. I mean, that was a huge part. Still is a huge part of my life, and but certainly what I was about when I was a kid. My house was the house where all the guys would come over and jam, you know. So I was in a lot of different bands, a lot of different combinations of people playing music and so forth. And we had this big game room, and it was just loaded with guitar amps and equipment. And people I didn't even know, you know, left their gear at our house, and people were calling the cops all the time, turn it down. And, there was one day, I remember we had 4 lead guitar players. I was on drums, me and another drummer, a bass player, and some kid trying to sing over all that mess, But, girls were coming over, and we thought we were cool and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, that was, again, a mild part of my identity. Any of you guys know, you already know what you're going to do for a living? Anybody? Yeah, you do? All right. What are you going to do? Going to be a doctor. That's awesome. Hey, it's great that you already kind of have that in your mind. Anybody else call something out? You think you know what you're going to do? Yeah. Be a teacher. Man, those are both great callings. A lot like ministry, both of them are actually. Anybody else? Not that I'm expecting you to know. Film and movie making. All right. Well, I had a little film company when I was in 5th grade, so I can relate to your dream there. So I had that dream. Another one of my early ones was I was going to be a punter for the Dallas Cowboys. I knew that was going to happen. It didn't. I was going to be a sports writer. I can't remember what. A disc jockey. I actually did do that for a while in college. But if you'd asked anybody in my high school, once I was in a high school, what's Brett going to do when he's a living? They would have all said the same thing. He's going to move out to Los Angeles, and he's going to be a record producer, kind of like the film thing. And the reason you could ask anyone that is because that's all they heard me talk about. That's what I'm doing, and I was always making tapes and writing crazy songs and, hanging out with the other guys that played and stuff. And that was what I was determined to do. My parents didn't seem to care if I pursued that or not, so that was the direction. So I went off to UT, which I wanted to go there since I was 3. Didn't even apply for another school. Didn't even consider going to another school. We had gone to Austin a lot as a family, which now my family still does all the time. We were very comfortable. I knew my way around, so it was like a second home. It was just kind of a no-brainer decision. So now I'm off in college, and now I'm in a band, and I'm playing bass in this band, and we're playing frat parties and some clubs around the drag and stuff like that, which, we thought was just super cool, It wasn't really that big a deal, but, we made some money, and so we thought we were something, and so my junior year in college, I'm in a class that I have to take for my major, and I meet this other guy who's a bass player. He's actually in the UT Jazz Ensemble, but he's also in a couple of rock bands, including a Christian band. And we hit it off and just really connected with each other. And it was definitely a God thing. I just didn't know it. And I figured out quickly that he was a Christian just by the way he carried himself. He was a super nice guy. And I should back up and say, when I was growing up as a kid, like your age, we went to church every Sunday. My dad said to all of us kids, he said, you guys are going to go to church every Sunday, no ifs, ands, or buts, till you're 18. Then when you're 18, you can make that call on your own. And, we were cool with that. I liked church. I had a lot of my friends there at church that didn't go to my school, so I got to see, that circle of friends. And I was an altar boy and went through confirmation, like you guys did. But it was a little bit different situation, because at my church, for whatever reason, we didn't talk about knowing Christ. We didn't talk about the fact that you could have a personal relationship with Christ. Church was just something you did. It was just a place you kind of went through the motions. It was kind of like half country club, half just kind of, you're just in your place, and that's just what you do, So when I turned 18, remember my dad said I had to go every Sunday till you're 18. I made my decision. I'm not going to go to church anymore. I didn't have anything against it. I just wasn't getting anything out of it. I just didn't see the point of it. You know, and now I was real involved in all kinds of other stuff. And so it was just time, I thought, for me to move on and do some other things. So 3 years later, I'm a junior at UT. I meet this friend, Maury's his name. And, you know, this guy never talked to me about Jesus. I told you he was a Christian, but he never talked about it. We would hang out, and we would just talk about music and rock and roll, you know, and Eric Clapton and Van Halen and, you know, all the stuff that he knew I was into, and he was into that stuff too, you know. And we just hit it off. I found out later that this guy had been praying for me since he first met me, you know. Somehow he knew, and it probably wasn't hard to figure out, that I wasn't a Christian, you know, and he just prayed for me, you know, he wanted me to have what he had. He wanted me to experience, you know, that real relationship with Christ that, you know, I obviously didn't know much about. So one night I hung out with Maury and some of his friends, and he had a lot of friends that were musicians and artists and that kind of stuff. A lot of them went to this real kind of cool church that had a lot of artists and musicians. And I don't know, after that night, I realized that I didn't have what they had. You know, even though I'd grown up in church, even though I'd been an altar boy, even though I went through confirmation, but again, my confirmation, we just memorized a bunch of junk. You know, we didn't do what you guys do, which is really talk about your life and your story and where's Jesus and all that, and, you know, real relationships. And so I'm starting to get it real clear. What these guys have, I don't have. And what's the disconnect, you know? And I couldn't sleep for like 3 or 4 nights, you know, in a row. So finally, I went back to my class where Maury and I first met, and class was about to start, and I went up to Maury and I said, hey man, you know, you got some time to talk with me after class? And he said, no, I really don't. You know, what's up? You know, I got a big test to study for. I really don't have time to meet. You know, is everything cool? And I said, well, I just got a lot of questions about the Bible and God, and I don't know, I just kind of figured I can ask all these crazy questions of you and you're not going to make fun of me. And he said, I got time. So we sat at the base of the UT Tower. You know, I remember it like it was yesterday, and this is almost 30 years ago. And this guy had a little New Testament that he carried in his backpack. And it was, you know, man, he knew his way around that New Testament. And, you know, I just started asking him all kinds of questions, which I have since been asked as a pastor more times than I can count, you know, just all the questions that people have about God and so forth. And so I'd ask a question, and, man, he knew the word. And he would, if he knew the answer, he would go right to the verse. And then the smartest thing he did was he would have me read it. He'd have me read the verse. And it was just like it was jumping off the page at me, you know. It was just, man, God was speaking to me, you know. And I didn't know what was going on, but I was like, something's up here. And then eventually, you know, we kind of wound things up, and he told me how to, you know, just pray a prayer, you know, how to give your life to Christ. And he said, do you want me to walk you through that? And I said, no, no, I think that would be a little awkward, you know. I don't think I really want to do that, but I appreciate you spending time with me, and thanks, Maury. And then I went back to my apartment that I lived in with my brother, and then I did. I said a prayer. I was by myself. You know, the apartment was empty, and I was on the couch, and I said, you know, Lord, I don't really know what this is all about, and if you're there, but I figure, what do I got to lose? You know, if you're really there, come into my life, and I want to turn from, you know, all the stuff that I've kind of been into, and I really expected like the roof of the apartment building to blow off, you know, and God's hand come down and say, welcome, son, we've been waiting for you, you know, it's about time, you know. But nothing like that happened, you know. In fact, I kind of got sick to my stomach and just took a nap, you know. But it was real interesting. Over the next few days, there were a couple of things that happened. Two things that made me think I might have become a Christian, and then one that nailed it for sure. The first thing that I realized was that year I had been involved in some college drinking and all that kind of thing, and I had wanted to stop doing that myself. I just thought, this is dumb. This is not a good thing, and it gets me into bad situations, and I just didn't have enough willpower to do that. And all of a sudden, I did. All of a sudden, I lost the desire to drink like that, And I thought, well, that's interesting. The other kind of external thing was swearing. I used to say GD, JC, F this. Just had the worst mouth that you can imagine. And that was also something for the past year I had tried to quit doing on my own and didn't have enough willpower or follow through or whatever to stop doing. And then all of a sudden that wasn't a big deal. I was just like, I don't need to do that. But that's not even how I knew I got saved. Here's how I knew. It was about 5 days later, and I had an empathetic thought. Now what I mean by that is I had a thought about, when you have empathy, you're putting yourself in somebody else's shoes, and you're going, gee, I wonder how they're feeling about this. That's what I did. And even though I'd always had lots of friends and was always, very social person, it was always about me. I never thought, well, gee, I wonder what she's going through, or I wonder what he's going through. And I started thinking this way, and I went, whoa, what is this? That didn't come from me. This is something new. This is new territory. And that's how I knew God was changing me, So now, wow, I'm a Christian, what does all this mean? And but it was exciting. So now things were different. Now remember, I told you growing up, what was my dream? If you asked anybody in my high school, record producer in LA. All right. Well, that started to happen. I graduated from UT. I moved to Houston to care for my mom, who was sick with cancer. And right away, I got a job in a major recording studio here in town and started working in the business. Started learning how to engineer records and learn things about record production. And it was a really cool opportunity. Was doing that a couple of years, was working on some cool projects and stuff like that. Then an even weirder thing happened. God had already started delivering on what Psalms talks about, giving you the desires of your heart. If you just put him first, he'll give you the desires of your heart. But now God started changing the desires of my heart. He started shifting me in a different direction. When you're in the studio for hours at a time, 5 minutes, okay. When you're in the studio for hours at a time, you got a lot of downtime. So, I was meeting bands and artists and people that were coming in, and I found myself really getting drawn to their issues, their personal problems, and they would just start dumping them on me. It was kind of a weird phenomenon, and then found out that I really had a heart for that and really had something to offer, I guess, in that regard. So that started shifting my thinking a little bit. I became less interested in recording gear and more interested in how to help people. And what was happening was God was starting to put in me a call to, ministry, and I didn't even really know what that was. But, to make a long story short, a few years later, I was called into ordained ministry, and I've been a pastor for about 20 some odd years now, and I can tell you all kinds of crazy stories about what that has been like, but I guess I just want to sum up by saying, back to what I said at the beginning, you've got a story, and God is continually writing that story. It's a very fluid story, and it has been in my life. It has changed, My relationship with him hasn't changed in the last almost 30 years since I've known him, but you know, I've been at this church now as a pastor for almost 15 years, which is the longest I've ever been anywhere. But I may be somewhere else next week. I don't plan on that. I hope to be here another 15 years if that's what God has in mind. But it's just really cool when you trust God enough to know that He is for you, you know, that He cares for you. A couple of you that mentioned, you know, teacher and you know, wanting to be a film person and a doctor and all that, you know, these are great things. I believe that God most likely has stirred you up to want to start checking out those options. And that may be very well what you're going to do. I encourage all of you to be just open to God's leading. You know, He knows your heart better than you know your heart. He knows my heart better than I know my heart. You know, I thought it was going to be L.A. and hanging out with the Eagles and whatever else I thought I had in my mind, you know. But I'm doing exactly what God designed me to do in life. And He's got that same kind of thing laid out for you. I just encourage you to not only be open, but kind of get in a listening posture over the next several days, weeks, years, so that God can direct you. Because I can just tell you this, He is so faithful to do it. You know, everything I have, this is the last thing I'm going to say, everything I have because of the Lord. You know, my calling, my wife, who's my best friend, we've been married almost 25 years, and we do marriage ministry all over the city now. My two kids that came up through this youth group, and you know, now they're worship leaders, and they get to do all the stuff that they want to do. They're probably both going to Uganda this year. I mean, that's an adventure, and the sky's the limit. You know, you have no idea what God has in mind for you. Scripture says that eye has not seen, ear has not heard, the mind has not even conceived what God has in store for those that love Him. You know, so I just want to encourage you to trust Him to show you very clearly what that is. Let me pray for you. Thanks for letting me yak up here, and I hope to get to know you guys better through the years. Well, Lord God, I am still blown away that you saved me back in 1982. That's a long time ago. And still not sure why you did it, except that I know how much you love me. And I know how much you love these kids. And that you have very specific callings of spiritual success for them. That you have very specific gifts that you've given them to do, things that are going to be perfectly in your will for them to accomplish through your grace. Thank you for your love and faithfulness to us. I thank you for these leaders that are going to help continue to coach them into just figuring out, you know, where they stand with the Lord and where to go next, Lord. Thanks for Luke and this ministry. What a great team of staff and volunteers, just some of my best friends in the world, and I pray you continue to bless this ministry and this process, and I pray that in Christ's name. Amen. Thanks a lot.
Mark had a good thought. Do you mind sharing a few of those questions with us about what questions you had about God in the Bible that you went to your friend about? Okay. Just a few examples.
Yeah, and these are the ones I hear the most, you know, like what about babies? Are they going to hell because they don't know how to make that? Yeah, if they die, they don't know how to make that decision. What about people that have never heard the gospel, that maybe they're in the jungles of some, you know, remote area? You know, another one was more along the lines of, do you need to kind of clean up your act to become a Christian? You know, which is not true. You know, God accepts you just the way you are. He'll take care of the cleaning up stuff, you know. So those are the ones that kind of came to my mind first.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
I don't have the time allotted right now.
No, that's great. I hope you guys start asking those questions now in your groups. I mean, your leaders will love you to interrupt them with a question like that. And same on the retreat this weekend. I mean, we're getting away. Use that time to really bring up those questions, talk about them. Come find me, come find one of your leaders, grab a friend, and just ask those questions, get into it.